welcome to Chill Pill Poetry, brought to you in association with poetswall.com, the home of poets with Parkinson's. I'm Nige, and in this podcast I'll be chatting about poetry matters, many and varied. So stick around and have a listen. There's bound to be something that floats your boat. Silent fall the mother's tears that will not dry. They are the river slow. Grief their burden flow, endless in the turning of a pebble bed anew. They see them still, faceless to sight, but not heart, in the fields of barley, certain the winds will find them, as it combs the crop, and whips the seas to furious break upon the shore. The earth cries aloud, old as time the mother cuddles the lost in her dark loam, ancient womb, safe from the night's wailing on the wing of feathers black. Hope clings to the wild geese, though they dim against the play of light on cloud, and names never worn carry from anguish loud. But news will not come. They are gone, taken for coin and dust, to live in lands far away, or moulder beneath the tiny bramble crosses. No heart is sacred that does not break on the pain of innocence, but looks to the benign mockery of icons to justify its perversion. This land is shamed, not by lust or teenage love, but by the sick piety of fathers and brothers. That poem was called Rivers Slow. It's about the scandal from the 1950s in Ireland, where late young girls who were out of wedlock who got pregnant, and the children were taken from them when they were given birth. Some were sold to America, and some, of course, obviously perished. And silent fall the mother's tears that will not dry. They are a river slow. Grief their burden flow, endless in turning of a pebble bed anew. Yeah, I was trying to convey there, you're not going to get over something like that, are you? Really? It's always going to be with you. And the second verse continues in the same manner. You know, where they look for signs, and they must do, constantly thinking what the child must grow up like, and dreadful business. The little ones that perished. The earth cries aloud, old as time, the mother coddles the lost in her dark loam, ancient womb. Yeah, it's just so sad. And that's basically it. It's different ways of putting across the message, and this is what poetry is. It has more impact than just retelling a story. It's more concise. And then the final verse is the kick in the teeth, or the groin, as it were. This land is shamed, not by lust or teenage love, but the sick piety of fathers and brothers. I think that's probably quite self-explanatory, but it's an awful thing, isn't it, that people of the church could have wield that power. This is called Open Window, and it featured on the wall recently. I put it on the wall. It's actually quite an early piece, which is surprising. No gav, I'll read the poem and then say something about it. Open Window. Is it inviting me in, or tempting me out with the generous sweep of its courteous wave? Closed, there's a candour of clarity that doesn't survive its opening, which brings only furtive ankle and a peep-show glimpse of a reflected somewhere. Cool breeze and icy blast will make sport with this opportune gap, exploiting the new space within to ply their trade, while mocking light has no preference, open or shut. It fears only drape or blind. Distinctly. It was literally based on the picture that I saw and I subsequently put the poem onto. this thing about windows being half open and like an arm came to me. People ask about inspiration, and really inspiration is just about everywhere. The trick is to get in the zone. I call it magical thinking. Nothing actually magical at all, but it's a way of sort of saying that it's a way of being. How can I describe it? If you're playing a game of snooker or football or whatever, and people say, "Oh, I had a great game. I was in the zone." Well, that's what it needs for poetry to be inspired. You need to be in the zone all the time to be able to look and find things, see things differently, be aware of it. It takes practice, but once you get it, you come up with crap like I've just written there. But really, it's just a description, really, of what I saw. You think about it, but in a way that it stimulates imagination. Hopefully, I believe it does that to most people. This next one's called Grey Ghosts, and again, it's nothing spooky. I just happened to be at the bedroom window one night, and a flock of night birds went scooting past, silent, and it really had an impact on me. I didn't realise there were so many birds around at night. I mean, you hear them, but these were to actually fly in a flock at night. I'd never seen that before, strange as it sounds. But the way the angle was and the time of year or whatever, the moon caught them and they kind of fluoresced. And it was quite a wow moment, So this is called Grey Ghosts. From sleep that was mine as a boy, before the turnkey moon's last ray, I smoked awake like night to day. Over glazed streets of winter raw flew silent flocks in roll and writhe, through viscous air coursing blithe. So clear the throw of bedside lamp upon the flurry of wings in flight, across my way they came alight, like gentle float of silvered ghosts, haunting the mist before my sight. Such I smoked to sleep as day to night. Yeah, it was quite something there. I liked this idea of smoking awake and asleep. I use that to describe, you just sort of drift off. It's rare for parkies, I know, but sometimes you're just so tired, you just sort of kind of drift off and without any problem. Yeah, it was quite special that. And the little bit in there I noticed as well that where is it now? Viscous air, through viscous air coursing blithe. There was like a slight mist as well. That's where that line comes from, which also added to the sort of spooky atmosphere of it. Nothing sinister with them, but it was just the way they glowed on the moonlight and through the mist as well. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I tend to write in different styles, and it's not like a feather in your cap, but it just makes life a bit interesting for the poet, I think, really. But this one's in more of a performance poem, slam, whatever you want to call it. It's a gritty social commentary as well. So here we go. It's called Can't Let Go. Another new day with nothing to say. It's no one's fault, just pepper and salt. They should call a halt, but battle on. It's a cold night, they'll start a fight. Or if the kitty's low, they'll have a go. Put on a show until the cops arrive. They dream of berries and cream, so the shit won't seem so real. Such a big deal that they run away. He wants a sub to go to the pub. Drinks is a curse. Her voice is terse. So he's in her purse for change. She divvies up and throws a cup that hits his head. The kid's in bed, no stories read, afraid and alone. They put warm chips to little blue lips. Fizzy sugar drinks, no soap by the sinks. Just kiddie high jinks and bedtime shouts. She's on the town, legs painted brown, for a Friday night of tops too tight, and feeling alright for a short while. Lads strut their stuff, a bit of rough. She's had too much, lets them touch, a kind of crutch to see her through. It won't last long, she knows it's wrong, but she feels alive, so she could survive, her marriage revive. Then morning comes, kisses aren't the same, there's no flame. They still care, love the kids they share, but smiles are rare in that house. She wants much more. He asks what for. There's no hope on the downward slope. They just can't cope anymore. Yeah, certain subjects seem to lend themselves to performance poetry, and I'm quite comfortable in the genre of social commentary and things, and it's quite bleak, it's quite sad, but you know, how many people are out there trapped in relationships like that, and anyway. Yeah, so it's an internal rhyme. So another new day with nothing to say, no one's fault, pepper and salt. I like to use a very simple, quick rhyme like that when it's a performance piece. So much so that I shall do another one now. Oh, good, you said. This one's called Preacher. It's about those people who exploit religion and people's religious conviction and people's need for religion. That's what it's about. The exploiters. Called Preacher. Hey, Mr. Preacher, I saw your TV feature, your angel white suits and demon killer boots, gathering lost souls to save from hell's coals. Oh, mystic mage upon your stage, there to convert, there to pervert, all those in pain for gold and gain. See the weak cower before your power, grubby, seedy, dark and needy, incense drama and talk of karma. I see PayPal prayers and your saintly stares that offer for a price to roll the heavenly dice. Pay extra and you win, free from guilt and sin. There is no love, here or above, pastor or priest, mark of the beast. Patter and pitch will make you rich, like rip and roar of fang and claw. The meek you seek, the slow, the weak, you know will sign for blood and wine. Yeah, not a lot needs saying about that, is there, I don't think. Again, a very simple, quick fire, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da rhyming scheme. It's very effective, very effective. I shall use it again sometime, perhaps. Right, let's move on and see if we find something completely different. And see what you think of this one. This one's called Mother. Her eyes are glass in their faraway stare to who knows where. But it's only a short while before the spell breaks with a thin-lipped smile that didn't curl up at the corners. She was only being daft, she said. She looks troubled, as if the burden of truth was stealing her youth and will break her in two, baking to clear her mind for hours too few of the worries that often pop up. It'll come out in the wash, she said. Her face says she's cross and feeling let down. She wears her best frown, but the eyes are still soft and kind, head cocked to one side, a gesture aimed at the mind, making the lad feel ashamed. What's done is done, she said. I particularly like that one. It's just, it reminds me of my mum. I'm sure it reminds you of a lot of mums. You know, that just sort of that, especially the part of the world I grew up in. It's the same everywhere. I'm not banging the regional drum or anything. It's just, yeah, it just seems typical of the women who were influential in my life when I was growing up. Suck it up, you know. Stop mithering. Stop. Yeah, let's see what else we can find. This is a little short one. It's called Crystal Soul. The perfected inner corporeal light of honesty and truth burning bright, the siren song lure of a self laid bare, the crystal radiance of a soul so rare. I picked this one because I say it's a crystal soul, and that's a term I use for people. You know, when you just come across somebody that shines just a little bit brighter than everybody else. You just know they're full of goodness and they haven't got any hurt or nastiness in them at all. They're incapable of it, even the slightest thing. I call them crystal souls. It's a way of stretching the boundary. It's art, so you should treat it like you would have canvassed, in the sense that you push the boundaries. Don't be confined by grammar and that's not a real word. Make a new word up. Make a new word up. It's your mind and thoughts, your emotions and thoughts put to paper. Just make another word up. I mean, obviously, don't make it ridiculous, but you know. And I do this all the time, just for my own benefit, really, and pleasure and enjoyment, I suppose. I'm not expecting people to adopt the new word and it becomes street slang or something stupid like that. But you'll find that the writing of poetry is a lot more rewarding when you adopt that attitude, that you're not constrained by the conventional grammar and what have you. Although I have to say, punctuation is quite important in poetry for reading and emphasis, of course. But anyway, we'll leave that for now. I spoke earlier briefly about inspiration and being in the zone, thinking magically, I think I referred to it as. Well, this is a classic example. This is called Raindrop, and it was inspired by... Yeah. So anyway, this is thoughts on a raindrop. I caught a drop before the rain fell, my hand cupped of storms to tell. Barely slight, this perfect bead, filled with light, the sun to seed, had from above so gently dropped, to wink on skin when briefly stopped, thence to course with a crease and curl of palm, running until its final swirl, then over once more to fall upon the earth, its final call. I felt a few thoughts or such, ghosting past, on feeling its touch. I can remember the moment. You know how it spots the rain before the actual downpour, and one landed on the palm hand, and that is what the resulting poem that came up from the experience. Yeah, I know. But the little things that I like about it is perfect bead. You ever see the raindrop? They do look perfect, filled with life, like the sun to seed. I'm particularly proud of that line. It struck me as I watched it and looked at it that it was like a seed, blown on the wind or whatever. But being only full of light, being water full of light, it could only have come from the sun. So that's where that came from. And the rest is just a description, really, description of it. Now, this next one is very special to me, and it's called Give Me an Hour. Hold wide the night sky, I may wish upon a star. Perhaps my passions are the make-believe of cartoon parade, a masquerade. Slow burns the silence as embers never to fire and be done, but ever to smoulder expectancy unto ash. Give me an hour to hear the faint footfall of my waking self, and I will pretend once more. Now, why this is important to me is originally it was Parkinson's poem. And as I sat there and reread it through and started tweaking it, I just thought, you know what? There is all sorts of people that are suffering in the world besides Parkinson's people. You know, and it might, yeah, sure, it might not be as dramatic and as full on as we suffer, Parkinson's people suffer. But to the individual, it's still a terror, an awful thing to endure, whether it's identity or sexuality or mental health or whatever, you know. And so I rewrote it and made it more generic. and that's what I've just read. And what makes it special is I posted it on Facebook, and somebody contacted me, messaged me to say how much it meant to them and how they identified with it, and to thank me for it. And that's all I seek for as a poet. That connection, just that connection with somebody. And yeah, it made my day. If he's listening to this, the guy will know who it is, I'm sure. I'll say a beautiful thank you. Yet another example of inspiration being everywhere. In the previous bedroom, I've moved to a different bedroom now, but my boyhood bedroom, I should just point out, I live in the house that I grew up in. I bought it off my mum and dad. Childhood dream come true. I went a bit pear-shaped after that, but never mind. But yeah, there's always been a street lamp, from my bedroom window in the front bedroom, from being a boy up to where my park is now. And there's many a night when I've laid there worrying, or I couldn't sleep or whatever. I've just watched this lamp and the branches and twigs through the seasons and the leaves all changing and dancing in front of the lamp, or playing across the night sky with it, and casting shadow and stuff. And it's just a street lamp now. To get a grip. Anyway, it's called Ode to a Street Lamp. I know well the airs of solitude and silence sheer, as I, a twisted figurine, stare wide-eyed into the blackest clear of the night unseen. It is then that time mocks with devious clocks to lie of hours past, and through the glass I gaze at the amber rays of loyal light by autumn's tree burning bright, till dreams are all I be. I hope the street lamp appreciates it. I also have a penchant for deep thinking. Are you joking, Nige? You deep thinking? Yeah. I tend to do a bit of pondering. And this one was a classic result of a bit of Nige's pondering. It's called Imperceptible Moment. As coming light tips favour to dawn, yet still day cannot be seen for night. Before the sun backlights infant skies with its promises gold or warnings red, know therein lies the hidden thread. Do not ask time of this, for time holds no dominion over that concealed, the exact moment, days revealed. When furious love lays its bold claim to word and deed, it knows not of its own birth. We do not know when our lives begin or when they end. We estimate only, and yet declare no mystery in the travelling fair. These imperceptible moments nature keeps to herself, for these are her secrets. Ooh. You might have picked up on the word travelling fair. That's a piece from another collection and another poem called The Travelling Fair. And the travelling fair is used to describe life. Like a travelling fair, it rolls up. And the whole poem was geared around this concept of the travelling fair being an analogy for, or a metaphor, whatever the correct term is, for life. You roll up and it's fun rides to have and scary rides to have, and then it's gone. Just leaving the litter on the ground where you've been. Pretty deep night for a travelling fair, that, isn't it? Never mind. So, moving on. Oh God, I don't want to listen to that. I'll go on then, yeah. Yeah, I mean, people often go, oh no, not another dark poem, not another dark poem. And there is this, as mentioned before, there's this kitsch saying that the poet doesn't choose the poem chooses the poet, or blah, blah, blah. And it is kind of true, really. Sometimes you just have to write about it. And this is one such poem. It's called From Love Shorn. Who is voyeur, and who is chaste visitor? Odious this place of depravity cachet, etched deep into the plaster's decay. A moment, children, let Papa wash his hands. I've been at it all day, breaking skin, spirit, and bones. A wandering mind will gather nightmares here. I put my curiosity to the peephole. Doors mirrored its infinity, stones set in their final opening by the constant drip of dread. Sun needles light within, of purpose profound and purest white, cleansing wounds still to heal behind the pitted paint and plaster peel. And the strewn about leaves, sins of the thieves that stole all the good in which man now believes. There'll be no peace, no final release from behind this door, this corridor. To view this place, you must leave a piece of yourself. I hope the piece I left was from love shorn. Okay, this is about Dachau concentration camp. The early 80s, when I got qualified as a dispensing optician, me and my friend Steve, we went to Munich after the beer festival, I hasten to add. Cheaper, Yorkshireman, tight as, yeah, so it's about Dachau concentration. Now, Dachau wasn't an extermination camp as such. It was, but it was still a pretty horrific place. They used to do experiments there on prisoners and stuff, and it was the first concentration camp ever built in Germany under the Nazi regime. And just visiting it made me think I was a voyeur, and I was uncomfortable from the start, and I swore blind I wouldn't take any pictures when I got there. And I had a little run-in with a school party when I got there, because they were just ordinary kids having a laugh and joke. It was all beyond them really. They were only young, but I took great offence by it and said something to the teachers and what have you. Something I regret now, because I understand the thing better. It's a big subject, is that, and I've spoken at length with Rena, my friend from Germany, about it, and yeah, it's a big subject, is that, and anyway. So as we were going round, I noticed this block, with a heavy door on with a peephole in it. So obviously you're going to have a look down it, aren't you? And what I saw down it was a load of cells with the doors open. And it was the punishment block. And the thought struck me, how bad must the punishment block be in a place like this? And it made me. I suddenly changed my mind, and I took a picture through the peephole, which is the image that many of you will have perhaps seen, but it's on my blog and all sorts of things. And as I came back afterwards and decided to take a picture down it, because it moved me so much. I noticed in that time that we'd been away and looked around the rest of the camp and came back, the light had moved down the corridor. It was as if it was cleansing it perpetually. So I'll go through the poem with you. Who is voyeur and who is chaste visitor? That accounts for what I felt, how I felt. I just didn't feel comfortable. I felt like I shouldn't be there. I was like getting enjoyment of interest out of people's misery. It didn't sit well with me at all. Hence this odious place of depravity's cachet, etched deep into the classic decay. You can't eradicate that. Just the reputation of it. You just can't. The next bit was it's quite fragmented, is this bit, and it's deliberately like that for emphasis, because your mind kind of flits on different aspects of this experience, and I wanted to capture that in the poem. So the next section goes is like imagining what the men must have been like who were the guards there, you know. A moment, children, let Papa wash his hands. I've been at it all day, breaking skin, spirit, and bones. Yeah, these ordinary guys find themselves in this situation and rise to the brutality. And each night they must have gone home to the kids, or every leave they gone home to the kids and picked up the children and loved them. The same hands that have been torturing and beating people. There's a line after that: "A wandering mind will gather nightmares here." Self-explanatory. And then there's an explanation as, is it an explanation or is it a justification on my part? I put my curiosity to the peephole. Doors mirrored its infinity, stone set in their final opening, by constant drip of dread. The way the doors were open on these cells, it looked like as if they were still there, like they'd just been released, you know? Like the Americans liberated Dachau. And I can imagine it just looked like all the doors had been thrown open and just left forever as they were. And there were leaves blowing down the corridor. That's where the strewn about leaves, sins of the thieves. I imagined that all the brutality that had gone on in that place, in that corridor, was trapped in these dead leaves and things. And there'll be no peace, no final release from behind this door, this corridor. It was like you could never clean and erase that. And you can't, and you leave a piece of yourself. Hence the title. I hope mine was from Loughshorn, in some small way to kind of counterweight the depravity. Anyway, so the point of that is that sometimes it's important to write dark stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's have something a little bit lighter. Ooh, well, how about a love song, a love poem? This one's called Mind's Eye. I can wash my hand in starlight, feeling it run and through my fingers as if it were cold glass of a morning brook. Make demons slide from patterned drapes and dragons hide in clouds. I can hear trees bend their branches to whisper in my ear. I feel the sag of dew from pearl to pear, petal fast against the pull, then finally the giddy release on its fall to ground. Yet I could never by mind's eye see any world, whether imagined or true, where walk to me without a you. Aww. Soppy Nige. Yeah, I picked this one because obviously love, death, big themes of a poem. Poets easy to access emotionally. But the point of this one is that I've not gone in through the front door. It's not a standard love poem. And basically the premise is that I've got a great imagination. I can imagine anything. I can imagine demons sliding from the patterned drapes. I can imagine dragons hiding in clouds. I can feel the sag of dew as it changes from a pearl into a pear shape before finally dropping. But I can't imagine not being with you. Moving on. Again, inspiration. This is called Remain, as in the lettuce. You know, thinking, where's he going with this one? It was during the COVID thing, you know, and some dear friends of ours, they kind of went all self. What's the expression? I'm trying to think of the TV program. You know, where they go self-sufficient. I can't remember the TV program. Anyway, they go sort of self-sufficient. So they immediately sort of built some raised borders and planted crops and, you know, salad things and stuff to eat. A little bit premature and excessive, but I think it helped them mentally and stuff. And I applaud their actions. It was great. And the point of me mentioning it is because Claire, a dear friend of ours, the lady of the house, she brought me a romaine lettuce round that she'd grown. And you know, there's something quite magical about that simple act of providing food, you know, sustenance, giving somebody, like drinking wine together, offering somebody a glass of wine, or just eating a meal together, and giving somebody something you've grown from the garden. Is quite special for me. I don't mean like, you know, fall over thanking them, the heavens and stuff, but you know, just a very nice, just nice thing, you know. That's what's wrong with the world. There isn't enough nice things. It doesn't take much, does it, really, when you think about it? It doesn't take much. Holding a door, offering somebody your seat, you know, these are little niceties. Giving somebody a lettuce. No, I'm going to get silly now, so I'll get back to the serious stuff. Yeah, so this is called Remain, and you'll see. So I'll talk about it after. Right, Remain. Shut up talking, Nigel, and get on with the bloody poem, lad. Right. From sudden haze tumbled solid days of hands and hearts earthing seeds, so soon to stand in new old land, nursed and fed by clearing skies, until the green of emerald sheen held in its wrap sweetness fresh, scented with earth that gave it birth and set free by morning cut. Then the gentle lift, for a welcome gift by kindly hands, for a grateful plate. Yeah, so just very simple. It's just 5 very short verses and a simple telling of the story. What makes it different is the way you place the words and the words you choose and the words you do want to think about. You know, right? If you want, you write a sentence, look at the sentence and then say, well, how else could I say that? And when you get used to it, very often you'll come up with a nicer or more suitable way of conveying the same thing, saying the same thing. It might be shorter, which marries the other lines better, gives it better rhythm, or it might just be an interesting word or an interesting analogy, you know, and a different sort of metaphor, or it could be with analogies and metaphors again. I do know the difference. It's okay. Yeah. This next one's called Parents. And it's not just about parents. I'll read the poem as usual, and then I'll just tell you about it. Parents, should you look upon me this day through eyes of wintered glass, eyes hard to shutter against night, for all the heavy darkness brings, know I can tell of bluebells in May, blackberry walks and bedtime talks, Christmas lights and bonfire nights. And when you're tired and fit to drop, yet still curse those quickening days that will not slow their hours for old bones wearied by fierce living. Know I can tell of summer pudding, storms in caravans and charabancs, fitted blazers and headlight lasers. Do not look upon me with sadness as one who has been short-changed, nor wring your hands tortured by imagined what-ifs and maybes. No, I will remind you of your boy, comics and capers, dumplings and stew, that all these things I owe to you. Yeah, the premise for this was I wanted to express how I feel about my parents dealing with the diagnosis of the son with Parkinson's. One of my earliest thoughts on being diagnosed was that, oh my God, my mum and dad, at their age, and they've still got the son to worry about. I don't happen to have got the rest of the kids to worry about as well, but that's another story. But, it's just a different... We get so insulated, and, oh, poor me, poor me. But this bloody disease, it touches everybody. And, I just wanted to convey that despite everything, I've had a pretty good life until this shit came along. So there's no use crying over spilt milk, is it? You know what I mean? And it's just full of personal things that I remember and are important to me. It's memory. Fitted blazers. My dad used to work in a tailor's. Used to make school uniforms, factory sort of thing, and I always used to get a fitted blazer. Dead posh was I. And headlight lasers. I used to love driving at night with my dad in the car, and the glow of the dashboard and the light piercing, and watching for rabbits jump out in front, and that's where the fierce headlight lasers come from. And the comics and capers, we used to always be fooling around, and Mum always used to bring us a comic back, and stew and dumplings was her favourite tea, Yeah, more soppy Nige, I suppose. This is another dark one, but I'll tell you prior to reading it why I've chosen it. A poem can only be finished when the poet decides it's finished. That's obvious, obviously. But what I'm saying is, put your standards high, If you want to write a poem, be critical of yourself. Very critical of yourself. And don't stop until you get it. I've written this next poem maybe 4 times. And it's about Ian Curtis, the lead singer of Joy Division, the cult band of the 70s and 80s, out of Macclesfield, Manchester area. Big influence on me and many other people at the time. And he was epileptic and had a young family, a wife and a little baby girl. He had an affair with a Belgian music journalist who I feel loved him deeply. And it all got too much for him, and worsening epilepsy, he committed suicide. So that's the background to it. But I wanted to write about it. And I've tried several times over the years to do justice to the subject, and I've never managed it until I did this one, and that's what the point I'm trying to make. And this one I'm very proud of, and I'm pleased with. So this is Eternal. They cried a savage love of kisses few, when the tides of seas and cities changed, flowers falling about the suttered brick, when the concrete first cracked, and song was the only colour. Tempered by burning black, there walked quiet despair, he of heart and soul, taken by harsh tithe of twist and writhe. Wired and fired amongst the amps and ambulance ramps, he dropped, awaiting the wane of tremor unto twitch, his moments stopped. Mine teased apart with every storm, till sanity was by fingertip caught, and sweeter grew the darkness sought. Her fingers traced the rains run upon the window's pane, cruel its clarity, denying touch, to see but not reach the frantic and the calm of a drowning man. Only the static hiss of vinyl, the click in the groove vinyl, turning in eternal end, where a savage love tore all apart. Okay, so a little bit of explaining there, because there's a bit of opacity in it. I talk of opacity as being not being able to be readily understood, which is always I like a bit of opacity in a poem because that makes me think. Other people don't. Other people want it straight, telling as it is, just plain story. But that's not really poetry in my mind. Might be in others, but not mine. So anyway, it's a matter of degree of opacity, isn't it? Really, I suppose. But this is how I approached it. The first verse is a scene setter. They cried a savage love of kisses few. Having read about it extensively from various and watched documentaries and all the rest of it, my own opinion, and that's all it is, it's an opinion, was that she did love him very much. And it wasn't just a fling and a sexual thing. Hence, I've interpreted all that with the one line, they cried a savage love of kisses few. The next line is, when tides of seas and cities changed. And that's because it took place in the 70s, which was a time of great turmoil in Britain. Thatcher's years, miners' strikes, firemen on strike, the looming subsequent Falklands War. It was a dark time to be growing up. Massive recession and unemployment, marches on the streets and things. It was a pretty bad time looking back, and it did have an effect on us. But that's why the previous, obviously in the 60s, had been pretty good. So the tides of seas and cities changed. It was almost as if it was like a tide that all of a sudden you found yourself in this darkness, And that's where the falling flowers about the suttered brick comes in. I can't remember exactly, but the opinion I got was that there was a certain class of politician, and what was kind of like, what's up with them, And it was the image of the suttered brick in the terraces of the north of England, and politicians driving past and throwing flowers out or something, that trite tidbits from the table kind of idea. When the concrete first cracked and the song was the only colour. The concrete first cracked refers to the disastrous housing initiatives, these monstrous concrete blocks where people were supposed to live, but like rabbit hutches, and poured into them. And they're all pulled down now, and that's what the reference is there. The first cracked. The song was the only colour. I can remember getting into music at that time, and it was literally like colour to me. And amongst all this darkness, this grey uncertainty, it was like colour. That's where that comes from. The next verse is basically about his epilepsy, and it's not very opaque there at all. But within that second verse is the first mention of I've worked in a title of one of his songs, Heart and Soul, and Eternal is also a name of his title of his songs, one of his songs, and of course in the end verse, Love Tore All Apart has come from a title of one of his famous songs. It's just like a little nod to the band and the guy, I suppose, really. The third verse is where it gets a bit serious. And it's impossible to tell whether he just suddenly flipped and thought, right, I'm ending it, or whether it was a gradual thing. suppose it's got to be really a gradual thing, even if in the end it was a sudden decision. So I've got mind teased apart by every storm. I mean, each time he had an epileptic fit, it must have thought, oh no, this is getting more frequent. And it was getting worse, as I said at the start. And that must be an awful thing to know. Well, Parkies know that, don't they? Till sanity was by fingertip caught, and sweeter grew the darkness sought. So there must have been a time when he just started thinking bad, dark thoughts. And the fourth verse is my interpretation of the love affair. And the Belgian journalist, Honor, whatever she was called, she knew and saw the signs, from what I can gather from the interviews afterwards that are circulating around. And she was desperate. She was getting desperate because she knew this was going to happen, and nobody took any notice of her. And certainly a few characters within the story have said publicly that, we were stupid, we didn't see it coming. So you've got her fingers trace the rains run upon the window's pane. In the written version, the window's pane, the pane spelled P-A-I-N, little play on words. Cruel its clarity, denying touch, to see but not reach, the frantic and the calm of a drowning man. That must be awful when you know somebody like that, in that frame of mind, and not being able to get to them, or get any help for them. And then finally, the final verse is only the static hiss of vinyl, the click in the groove final, and then the savage love tore all apart. So it's a play on words again with the song title at the end. And also, when he was found, there was an album of Iggy Pop's still circling on the turntable. So he must have listened to the Iggy Pop record and then said goodbye. Sad, very sad. I think we find something cheerier after that, I think. This one's a little shorty called Wink, and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's one of those, when you misread the body language kind of thing, Called Wink. I winked at you in a gesture not bold and brash. It was not a wayward lash, nor a dry itch of pollen. There was no such disturbance to warrant an eye's flick to close. As your head tilts into confusion and question, not fully covering the faint blush upon your cheek, I must tell you, the thrill of your touch I do not seek, nor have I fallen in love. I winked at you just now, because you make me smile. Oh, God, this guy's a right soppy get, isn't he? Hey, dear me. Man up, Smithy. I quite like that, because I remember writing this, and I felt bad, because I can imagine the lady, the girl, thinking, oh, he fancies me. He just winked at me. And then the embarrassment and disappointment at the end. So I had to change it, and so in the end he winked at her because it made her smile. And I can see that, I can feel that myself. I've never winked at somebody because they make me smile, but I felt a bit of a twitch, of the eye, maybe. I don't know. It just seemed nice. I like the nice. Let's see if we can find another nice one. This is called Summer Madness. And it's a bit like a northern lyrical type of poem. I suppose it is really, but it's not in a performance style. And I thought it might be interesting to compare what we did previously, which is kind of like bum 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 bum, fast rhythm and simple rhyme. And although these are simple rhymes here, it's a different sort of rhythm and vibe. See what you think. Summer's heat turns the pub inside out, crowding its deck with pose and pout, and the sheen of perspiration gilds the drama affectation of sticky air desires and sudden flash fires, as they all take their fill of the summer mad thrill. Inside, the party profane say the world's gone insane at the first sign of sun, but readily confess they love it nonetheless, and later wander out with their real ale and stout to try a little fun. And the old couple sit bent in the silence of decades, and the memory cascades of a love content, saying with a smile they'd got more style back in their days of summer madness. Yeah, that's my favourite bit of that poem at the end. You see the old couple going, yeah. They don't do it right though, do they? They don't do it as well as we did back in our day. Now this next one's called Happy Days. Yeah, I'll do this one called Happy Days, because it's nice. There were days, our happiest, though at the time we did not think them so. A thought just touching sadness, perhaps, though even with foresight I could not cherish them more. They were above and beyond the ordinary in their multitude. It is within the common and not the peculiar that I find the best of our times, when we filled our wakeful hours with frantic pace and peace, arrogant in our together, proclaiming the puzzle of hearts resolved, when the only movement was the flicker of our eyes, and we, separate save hands not held, but laid to touch, knew that was enough, that was all. Yeah, I wrote that in a kind of a melancholy, poignant sort of mood. Thinking about the years good years that Joe and I had before the illnesses and things. And we had some damn good times, you know. But the big point I wanted to make with this one is that the line, it is in the common, not the peculiar, that I find the best of our times. That applies to poetry as well. It's the little details and the common bits that are interesting, really, and which make the poem, not the big brash events, as it were, you know, unless that's the central theme, of course. Okay, let's finish up with a bit of performance poetry again. Quite into that at the moment. Going fads, don't you, phases with stuff. It's called Stiletto. She's a kiss and tell, flash for cash apparel, with heavy coal eyes and ruby red lies, a cocked carnal gun of hair trigger fun. She's the rat-a-tat beat of stiletto feet. Her slinky moves and writhing grooves flash her thighs to the waiting flies. She's all boobs half out, jiggling about, so gaudy drinks, the cocktail she sinks, she gets for free when she finds a knee. She's a piece of work, pissed in a murk, being driven back to jump in the sack. No lasting ties, just a long list of guys. She's a tiger all right, but only that night. Faces soon fade, when a bed's remade, numbers deleted, the game completed. Now you see, once she was a pick and choose sexual muse, a nightclub vamp, a chat-up champ, all fill your boots with forbidden fruits. She knew their likes, these horny tykes, but now she's just a goal to score for lads cocksure, and they're all working class with plenty of sass. But her secret fear, year on year, of losing her looks and surgical tucks has now come to be. That's why, you see, she shows a bit more, hoping to score, lowering her sights away from the lights. Now it's a chore, now she's unsure. And she doesn't care, she's become a dare. The looks she gets are just cruel bets, the winks of blokes, just crude jokes. But if they don't sneer or stink a beer, she'll give the randy a quick hand shandy, sometimes a bed, but inside she's dead. And behind the door, On her bedsit floor, amongst the mess, lies her pulling dress. Faded red, all's been done, and all's been said. She'll not cry at all, no tears'll fall. She'd be no bride, her mummy had often lied, a lass of the night with a room and a red light. She'd given a shove to her mates in love, taunted and teased, and said she was pleased. They no longer rang, all the girls of the gang. Truth is, all she really wanted was to be loved. Yeah. Oh well. Guess it was not meant to be, was it? Sad though, isn't it? Okay, thanks very much for listening, and see you next time. Bye.